Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Karlen Crouch on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from Las Vegas, where I wish I was there right now personally gambling myself, but hey, my money wallet, is happy that I'm not there because, I am plus like 1,000 from my last few visits, but hey, I don't want to risk it. But most importantly, getting off the gambling, because that's the whole podcast in and of itself that I'm going to trip myself into. She is a bodybuilder and she's on here to share her health and fitness journey with us and, talk all things bodybuilding. But most importantly, she's our current guest, Karlen. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, you're welcome.
Well, I do got to ask this because I ask this every single guest. What is the weather like in Las Vegas today?
I think it's about 95 out right now. It's not quite 100 yet.
Well, hey, anytime you're in that area, that's a plus. But I do got to ask, because for anyone that lives in that area, how are you able to do anything when it gets to 110, 115? Because I just had a guest on from Arizona that I was just talking to, and that's just a nightmare in and of itself. But how do you function with that? Do you just basically just stay at home all times?
Well, you try to stay inside and try not to be outside for extended periods when it gets above 115. It was like that just not too long ago. We had a week straight. And so it was just it was crazy.
That is the temperature right there where you're just if you want to lose your extra 5 to 10 pounds of water weight, then yeah, sure, go out for a run right there. But, make sure you bring about 10 gallons of water. But before we depress everyone with that, because, that's even making me sweat a little bit right now, just even talking about it. Why don't you give us your backstory and what really inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led to you becoming a bodybuilder?
Well, interesting enough, I actually went through a divorce 10 years ago. That put me in the gym. And when I was working out in the gym, it was just my happy place. It was my therapy. I really started to enjoy it. I had a trainer approach me and asked if I ever thought about competing. And I never did. I didn't even know what it was. And I looked it up and I was like, ooh, I want to look like that. And I actually started in bikini. And I did my first shows in bikini. I started competing in 2012. And took 2013 off. I actually got into CrossFit. But I put on too much muscle on my shoulders. So the next time I tried to compete in bikini, they told me I didn't place, and they told me I needed to consider moving to figure. And so it took me a while because I was one of these girls that thought if I went up a division, I was going to start to look manly. And that was the last thing I wanted to do. And so my coach for my first figure show was John Jewett. I am still with him to this day. I've been with him, it'll be almost 6 years. And he helped me understand that just because I go up a division doesn't mean I look like a man. Just means I'll be leaner, because you have to be leaner for figure. You have to see more muscle definition. And just opposing, actually, I'm more comfortable posing for figure because it's more structured in our quarter turns. It's not as subjective as the bikini is. And there wasn't wellness then, obviously. And I was not going to go any higher than figure at that time.
Hey, the benefits of working out, I'm 26. She doesn't look a day older than me, everyone. So, if that doesn't want to motivate everyone to, get in shape and start working out, I don't know what does. But, you mentioned that obviously, you had that, belief that I just don't want to look manly and stuff. And that's a thing that so many women have, where we talked about this prior, where, they just look at one weight and they just think, oh my God, I'm just going to gain 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And obviously you had that fear moving into figure, but I bet you still hear that all the time now. How do you like to respond to that? Because unfortunately, as much as it has disappeared, there is still so many people that believe that.
That's correct. Yeah, I just tell girls when they say they want to tone, that's the word that they love to use, is I don't want to build, I don't want to bulk. I just want to tone. And I'm like, well, when you tone, you're literally losing fat and you're seeing your muscle. It has nothing to do with bulking per se. And so I always say you want to lift heavy, because you lift heavy, you're going to burn fat while you're building muscle. It's inevitable. Unless you're eating really, really crappy, which most girls who are interested in losing weight or getting in shape aren't eating extremely crappy by then. They have their diet at least somewhat in check. If not, they're not eating enough to put on the muscle too. So they'll never look bulky, even if they start lifting weights, because we don't have the genetics to even start to look like a man.
Oh my God. Yeah, that is such I just love that you brought that out there. But one thing that I also love to talk about with the working out aspect, and it affects females, I think, so much more positively than males, but it affects males as well. It's just that confidence boost that working out gives you. I mean, we have heard hundreds of stories on this podcast of women who've, they've either made life-changing decisions or it just helped them immensely, that confidence boost that working out gives them. How have you personally taken that confidence boost that working out has given you and used it to impact your life?
Well, I obviously, when I got into it, I was going through a divorce, and it was just something that made me feel good. Being in the gym, like doing something good for your body, it made me feel more confident in myself in doing that. And then bikini, honestly, I'll tell you, I was never comfortable on stage. The posing, it just wasn't me. It wasn't my fit. The moment I switched to figure and I stepped on the stage as a figure competitor, I felt so much at home. Like I felt confident walking on stage. I knew like this was where I was meant to be. Like, and ever since I started my figure journey, competing in figure, my confidence has exploded just because it helps me to be confident in who I am and to be able to, and now like women like look up to me too. And I'm always real too. I'm not, what you see on my Instagram is me. I'm not someone who only shows like highlight reels like everyone always wants to see. There's the crappy parts too. Like the other day I posted something about just a mental struggle I had. I just checked out. We all go through it, but competing has just helped me have the confidence in myself and believing that I can do it. I would have never thought I would have gone pro. I just didn't think I could. And it only took me 2 national shows and I went pro.
That is amazing. And I also love that about your Instagram profile too. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, is because you are real about it, not just one of those who they hoard 700 photos from their competitions and then they post that for like the next year. And I really appreciate that about you. But I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, this sport is so much more of a mental journey than it is a physical journey. And most people do not understand that because they just look at the physical results and there's, oh my God, that looks amazing. But what has this whole journey into bodybuilding been like for you mentally? Because I mean, that is 10 times the battle. And it has the most lasting effect, I think, on a person, is just that mental strength that is built through this sport.
Oh, 100%. So I fall back on my faith a lot in God. And the mental aspect can get really dark if you don't have the correct roots and the correct foundation to build on. And I went through a little bit when I first competed and I first rebounded after your first competition, like everyone does. And it's like a body dysmorphia thing that women go through. I mean, men go through it too. There's nothing to knock it there because men absolutely 100% go through it. I know enough men now that have body dysmorphia as much as females do. They look in the mirror and they're lean as heck and they think they're fat. And it's sad that that's what this sport can do to you. But you have to be comfortable in every phase of this sport. You have to love yourself in the on season, and you have to love yourself in the off season. And the process and the journey is where I fell in love with it. I absolutely love going to the gym. I love lifting weights. The minute that that becomes a chore and then I hate it is when I need to start questioning why I'm doing it. So to me, I still know I'm on the right path. I absolutely enjoy the process. I love like the transformation. And like right now, I'm getting ready to do my pro debut. So I was off the stage for 3 years. I went pro in 2018. I was supposed to do my pro debut in 2019, and then I moved to Vegas and just took that year off. Then I was supposed to compete last year, well, COVID. So we knocked that. And so my coach and I were like, we're getting on stage come hell or high water. We're doing it this year. So, but just to like compare my photos and to see how much hard work like I put in those 3 years and how my body's completely changed. I'm sitting 6 weeks out now to where I was at 6 weeks out from USA's where I went pro. My body's just like a night and day difference. And it's so cool to see like you did that. Like nobody else did it for me. I did it with the guidance of, my coach, but I'm the one that's executing the plan. He's not here holding my hand.
What do you think is one area that you've improved on the most the 3 years since you won your pro card?
Gosh, it's really all over. So we noticed like my shoulders have improved more and my legs. My biggest critique was tighter glutes and hams. They really didn't say much about my back, but you can see, I mean, we've overall developed. So I have more symmetry, and I brought my waist in more. That's all it's about right now, man. That tiny ass little waist.
Absolutely. That's, I mean, yeah, that V shape. Yeah, everyone preaches that. And, I've heard that a million times. But when we talk about this sport, I mean, nutrition is one thing that people just do not understand. Is just that's 80 to 90% of this. I mean, the abs are made in the kitchen is so true, and just all these other things. What were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made once you started in this journey, and how has that evolved? Because I mean, you can't really stick with the same meal plan your entire career.
Right. Oh no, it's different all the time. And it's funny because each prep, like, something will affect me differently. Like, I remember on prep for USA's, I couldn't do eggs. Like, they upset my stomach. We had to cut out eggs. This prep, it's chicken. I can't do chicken, so we're doing turkey breast meat. So I'll do the turkey breast tenderloins because turkey doesn't affect it me. I know they're very close in similarities, but they are different. And for some reason, like, chicken sits like a rock in my stomach. So we're having to do turkey breast. So it's interesting, but no two preps have ever been the same. I've gotten a lot smarter with how easy I make it now. I used to prep everything like all on Sundays. My job's different now too, but I would do everything and I would do fresh vegetables. Well, reheating fresh vegetables after you bake them makes them very soggy. So now I buy frozen vegetables and I prep all my protein still. I don't have a certain day of the week that I do it. I do it when I need it because I have the flexibility in my schedule. But I mean, I just make sure all my proteins are prepped and then I have frozen vegetables now, which makes it super easy because I can just air fry them or heat them up or whatever I want to do with them. And heating those up doesn't make them soggy, whereas reheating cooked fresh vegetables absolutely makes them soggy. So it's just like little tricks you start to learn as you get further into prep.
I mean, there's so much trial and error that you learn with that too. I mean, like one time I undercooked chicken and that's a bad experience for me. So now I had to basically have my chicken burnt for basically the next like year that I did it, basically just to make sure that every single ounce of bacteria is dead in that thing before I eat it. But yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah, trial and error is a huge part of this lifestyle. But the number one thing that I would have never guessed in a million years before I started this podcast, but as I had more guests on, I realized that for so many of these competitors, posing is the hardest thing for them. It's harder than your nutrition. It's harder than your working out. I would have never guessed it in a million years. Where I compare it now to like being a perfect driver, where you can be a great driver, you can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like?
Oh, 100%. I was actually just talking about this because I'm starting to practice, obviously, my posing. And as a pro, you actually have a routine that you can do when you're up there longer. You can take your time, and that's an adjustment. I still want to rush. And so I was posing with Carly Starling, and she was just like, no, no, slow down, like make it intentional. And then I heard this quote one time, and it makes perfect sense in posing. I think it was Bruce Lee that said it. He's like, I'm not afraid of the man who practiced 1,000 kicks one time. I'm afraid of the man who practiced one kick 1,000 times. So if you practice your posing, your same routine 1,000 times, I mean, you think about it, you're going to nail it when it comes on stage. If you practice it, just a couple times a week and you only get 50 practices out of it, well, you're probably not going to be as good as the person who's just continually practicing their posing. You almost have to treat it like you do in the gym. They don't judge you on your workouts. They judge you on your posing. So you might as well make your posing more of a priority, if not the same priority as your workouts.
I mean, I've always made the saying too, where it's like you could be the most in shape person on the planet if you don't know how to pose. Like, good luck at your shows, and it's just unfortunately that is the truth. Where I mean, you've seen so many shows where you're just like, why didn't that person win? And then you're like, oh, look at their posing, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's why. But one thing, especially with figure, that has been the number one problem that I think for so many competitors when it comes to posing in figure is that flaring the lats. That's just one thing that I think it's the hardest thing for so many people because it's one of those things. It's not really like where you're either born with it or born without it. It's more of those things where it's going to take you sometimes years to be able to develop that. How long did it take you to develop the flaring of the lats? Because that's one thing too, where I mean, so many people have talked on this podcast about how they struggled with that.
Yeah, I practiced a lot, really, really diligently for my first figure show, and I had a very good friend who helped me with it, and it was like every time after I would lift, we go in and help, and it was practice. I mean, honestly, because now I was actually because I'm helping a girl pose for her first figure competition, and here locally, and it's just funny because I'm like, I can't even do it wrong now. I can't show you how to not do it because I'm so trained now on how to spread my lats. I can't I can't mess up and be like, this is how you're not supposed to do it, because I just can't go back there. So it's just like, it's seriously, it's just practice. And it took me, I mean, the better half of that whole prep to my first figure show to really nail it and to feel comfortable, like knowing that when I was hitting that back pose, I wasn't squeezing my shoulder blades out. I was opening them up and opening up my lats.
The only positive thing with that is that it's like I've compared it to like riding a bicycle where once you learn it, I mean, it is almost impossible to unlearn it. So at least there's that to it. But I mean, out of the poses that you do, what is your favorite and what is your least favorite?
Um, Gosh, my least favorite are probably the side view, like when we're over each side, just because I have a little bit of a hard time turning my upper body. I just don't have the flexibility, I guess, in my spine to do it. So those are probably my least favorite poses. My most favorite is probably the front and back pose. We just corrected my front pose, believe it or not, and it just made a world of a difference. Like I actually have a waist and abs now, and it's like, little bitty tweaks, and it's just like, wow. Like now I like, because it was something that I was always conscious about in my front pose, and now I actually like my front pose. So
Yeah, that's something that we hear of all the time where people, yeah, they just find that out and it's just so fascinating for me. And what is that moment like for you when you get to walk up on stage, show off all that hard work that you've worked months upon months on? What is that feeling like?
it's surreal. It truly is. It's just like you kind of just savor the moment, and then when you do like slow down and you hit those poses, it's like, look at me. Like this is what I busted my butt for the past X number of weeks, trying to perfect everything and dial everything in. And this is what I built and this is what I worked for. So I love it.
No, I can't imagine what that feeling's like too, because just doing team sports. But that, yeah, that must be just a great feeling. And what was that moment like for you when they announced your name and you realized, oh my God, I'm a pro now?
It was definitely surreal. Funny thing is I know the girl who got second, who also got her pro card, but it was between her and I for first and second. And I took first, she took second. And we both, like I said, we both got our pro card. But her and I have become very good friends. She lives here in Vegas too. And it's funny now. She said she was praying that she got second because she had to leave on a flight to Mexico the next morning and couldn't do the photo shoots. And I was hoping I got first because I really wanted to do the photo shoot. So, but I'll never forget like that moment, like when I heard them call her name, I was just like, oh my gosh, not only did I just win my pro card, like I took first. Like that was, and then I'm going for the overall. I didn't end up getting the overall, but it was a pretty cool moment. It was indescribable.
That is the highlight that so many of our guests talk about of their career, just because that's the affirmation that you can compete in those pro shows now. But one thing that I find so interesting about bodybuilding is that it evolves year after year. And I mean, taking 3 years off in between shows, I mean, the sport changes significantly like that. Like we even have a new division now with wellness. What has that been like for you, sort of seeing the sport change over the years that you've taken off to try to grow? And has it been something that you've sort of just been worried about, adapting to that changes, not being on a stage for as long as you haven't been?
Oh yeah, for sure. I've had the periods of time right now in prep where I'm like, shoot, did I even put on enough muscle? Like these figure girls are big now. Like I put on a decent amount, but how much did I really put on? Should I have worked harder? Like, I mean, you can only feel like you can only work so hard, but it's just, yeah, absolutely. I've seen it evolve. And it seems like though each year, like they're scoring and judging the girls a little bit differently. Like sometimes they're looking for the conditioning over the muscularity. And then I feel like other shows, it's like more they're looking for the bigger girls over the conditioned girls. And so that's a little bit frustrating, but all I can do is bring my best look. And as long as I beat my previous look, then I'm happy. Obviously, we compete to win, but in reality, not everybody can win. So I just know that if I present my best look, that I've already won in my eyes.
Oh, 100%. That's, yeah. I mean, just even going through a prep, I always say, I mean, you can accomplish anything in life just because of all the struggle that entails. But I also love to talk about post-show blues on this podcast because so many people do not understand that look that you present on stage is not a sustainable look. You're not going to be able to look like that, 365 days out of the year. And, some people try to do it and, it's unhealthy and they it's normally it shortens their careers. But what was that like for you when you first realized that, oh my God, all this, weight that I lost, and as good as I look right now, I am gonna have to put on some weight after this. And has it gotten easier for you as your career's gone on to just sort of accept that? And especially in preparing for going back after 3 years, do you feel that you're sort of mentally ready for the fact that like, hey, this look that I present on stage, I'm not gonna be able to sustain it?
Oh yeah. I mean, my post show blues have been a little bit different, honestly, each show. So after I competed in bikini, I really didn't experience like those post show blues that bad, I feel like. Um, but when I went pro, that season coming off of that show, there was a period of time about 3 to 4 months after the show, like I hit rock bottom. Like my hormones got all messed up and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And like I felt like I was slipping into depression and I wasn't myself. And like biggest thing is I just have to preach to people like get your blood work done, just monitor your blood work, make sure your levels of all your hormones are staying where they need to be, and if not, you're getting put on something to help them. So I mean, I had to go on TRT because my my testosterone and progesterone weren't even registering on my blood work. So I had like none in my system just to bring me up to normal levels. So yeah.
I highly recommend you get your blood work and all that stuff done too, because that's one thing that, I mean, being a man, I never even thought that I had hormones. So when guests started talking about hormones on this podcast, I was like, wait, why do I need to get my hormones checked? I don't need that. And they're like, oh, and I was like, oh. Then I had a hormone specialist on, and she just blew my mind with all that stuff. And yeah, that makes me appreciate the females that compete in the sport even more, just because you go through all that extra stuff too. And that's just, yeah, I mean, get your blood work done. We've heard that a million times, and I couldn't agree with it more. That it is so important. But
And I always tell girls if they have a coach that's not doing blood work and that's not monitoring their blood work, you might want to rethink that coach because you need someone who wants you to monitor your blood work and who's going to ask you go get your blood work done. My coach has me do it every 12 weeks. So yeah, it's important.
that all goes with just finding the right coach too, which is another struggle that a lot of people deal with as well. And yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. But like, let's be honest, you're not the average looking woman. If you were to walk out in public dressed the way you are right now, you are going to get stares, just because it's human nature when they see something that's not of the normal. Just be like, oh wow, that's interesting. I compare being a bodybuilder to being like a mini celebrity, where it's like you're going to get a lot more attention. And what has that been like for you, sort of dealing with that? Because some people, I mean, they like it, and then other people are just like, they just kind of want to be left alone. What has your experience been like as your career in bodybuilding has gone on, of just that extra attention that you might be getting?
Um, Honestly, I'm kind of in the middle. Like, sure, it's fun to get extra attention as you get lean, but you have to keep level headed and you have to see through people who only pay attention to you when you are lean and who are only looking at you when you're lean for certain reasons. As a female, you really have to hone in on that and make sure that you are realizing, are they talking to me because of the way I look right now, or are they really interested in who I am? So if they can handle me in my off season, then they get me in my on season too, is what I say. So come to me in my off season, not in my on season. But the biggest thing is like walking into like a convenience store or like around Target. Yeah, I get stared at all the time because right now I'm pretty lean and it's like you just don't see women with muscle and that lean walking around. So it's distracting when you get catcalls and like weird stuff like that. It's just I ignore it. The funniest thing lately has been I had this one guy just walking out of Target. Literally, he goes, "Damn, I wouldn't want to get in a fight with you." I just kind of laughed because I'm like, I don't even fight. I mean, that thought go in my head like, if someone were to fight, I'm like, yeah, I might look hard, but it's like I don't know. Could I even fight someone right now?
Well, yeah, people don't understand that, as you get leaner too. I mean, it's like you don't get stronger really. I mean, you're at your somewhat weakest when you get ready for a show, and a lot of people, yeah, do not understand that. But yeah, that is just, yeah, I always just love to hear those reactions, because it's just fascinating to see how the general public, thinks about this. But the most important thing when it comes to this journey, I don't care what anyone says, is sleep. You could argue with me all you want, but for anyone who argues with me, I always tell them, go pull an all-nighter, then go and try to work out and tell me how that works for you. I mean, it really just defines, for me at least, whether I'm going to have a good day or a bad day. And I know people are like, oh, just mentally, you can change it whether or not your mood or not. And it's like, no, if I get like 4 hours of sleep, I'm not going to have a good, I don't care what anyone says. You can give me as much coffee as I want. I'm one of those people where I need my 8 hours. But where do you fall on the sleep spectrum, especially since, you are getting closer to a show and sleep becomes harder and harder as you get more dialed in?
It's so vital to prioritize sleep as you get harder because you have to recover. That's something that my coach and I are honing in on right now is my recovery because my legs are getting super fatigued from cardio and training them, and I'm not recovering them accurately. So we're taking a little bit more time off of cardio like during the week. When I tell him that, like, he's giving me breaks from cardio. So just to help me recover, but sleep is a huge priority. And right now it was pretty little. Like, I couldn't get more than 6.5 hours of sleep, and I was just feeling really drained. And I recently bought a new mattress, and that has helped. So now I'm more on the 7.5 hours, which makes a big difference. And the other day, I actually got 8 hours of sleep, and I felt like a different person. I mean, it's just so I average about 7 to 7.5 right now, which is pretty good on prep. But the more sleep you can get on prep like this, the closer to stage you get, the better because your body really needs the rest.
I mean, I've said this a million times, but one of the best feelings on the planet is after you get that, heavy workout in, you get that proper amount of sleep that night, you wake up feeling like a superhero, basically, where it's one of the best feelings on the planet where you know that you're going to have a great day. And I mean, on top of all this, like you mentioned it before, cardio is the bane of my existence. I hate it more than life itself. And when I say cardio, I mean like the walking part, I mean the running part because, I could walk, 1,000 miles straight and I mean, I'd be fine with it. But what is your relationship like with cardio? Because unfortunately, when you become a bodybuilder, you do sort of have to sign a deal with the devil when it comes to cardio.
Right. I honestly don't mind it. I enjoy fasted cardio in the morning. It kind of wakes me up a little bit. I find TV series to watch on Netflix, and I just plug it in and just kind of walk. And I'm done watching a show, and I'm almost done with my cardio. So, or I find like a podcast to watch or something. Um, it's really not that bad for me. It's when the PM cardio gets longer, that's when it's a struggle for me because it's like my evenings are usually pretty busy because I have evening clients, and it's just like trying to juggle that, making sure I'm home by a certain time to start my cardio, to get my cardio in before my last meal, and also to get to bed in time to get up to do fasted cardio. So that's my struggle is like the evening cardio.
Oh my god, yeah, that evening, I mean, yeah, that's the only cardio I do now just because it's so hot now. It's like in the 90s now where I gotta wait for it to get, to like 9 o'clock and then I go out when it gets dark. So yeah, that's the evening cardio. That's my only cardio. But yeah, we hear that all the time because I'm a night owl. I go to bed, I'll get up at like 10 or 11 usually. So I don't, I have a little bit luckier than most of the guests that I have on the show. But going into this, journey, there are just so many things that people do not understand. And what would you say is one of the biggest misconceptions that you get from people in the general public all the time about the sport of bodybuilding? Because unfortunately, there are a lot of them.
Yeah, there are. Well, the biggest thing I think is funny is when you start to lean down, people always say, "Man, you're getting so bulked up." I'm not really bulking. I'm just shedding all the fat so you can actually see my muscle. But I just think that's funny that that's how people describe it. Like, it's not like, "Oh, you're super lean." They're like, "Dang, like you're jacked. Like you're like, actually, I'm not. I'm quite small right now." So I think that's kind of funny. As that's the biggest thing I think is like when you start to lean down and people actually call you like bulked up or bulking. It's like, no, quite opposite.
A lot of people do not get that too, and I do find that funny as well. Where it's just, yeah, they just don't understand that as you get smaller and smaller. I mean, yeah, that's just that's there's so many things with the general public with that I I really just find just so amazing. But I mean, if someone were to walk up to you and just say, like, hey, we made one decision and you can, or I mean, we made the choice that you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. Um, hmm.
I can give you mine while you're thinking then, and then so we can, yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like with judges where it's just like, yeah, like you were talking about before, like some judges might want a little bit more of a leaner look, and then the next week they might want a little bit more of a fuller look, where it's just trying to make it more, you know, more suited for all the judges, where it's like you just have an overall ideal of what you want, as opposed to like you said, if you're to compete in shows and like 1 week and then 2 weeks later, good luck trying to fill out more and do all. I mean, it's all about the judging too. That I think with me, where I mean, the judging is very very good as it is right now, but just like with everything, it can get better, and that's my thing.
Yeah. That is something that popped in my head. I don't know, knowing that you're going into a show getting an equal shot, whether you're a rookie or whether you're a 10-year veteran, you know? So that might be something
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. COVID has been one thing that impacted our lives in more ways than we could ever imagine. I mean, we're recovering right now, and everything's getting back to normal, and people are going back to the gym. But what was your journey like during the pandemic, especially being a bodybuilder, where the gyms were shut down for a little bit and all that? How did you deal with all this during the pandemic? Because I felt, for my bodybuilding guests, this must be even harder than them than the normal person, really.
It was hard for sure. My coach actually came out with an at home workout for us, and I had some bands, and I actually have a new fit device. I don't know if you've ever heard of the newbie, but it's a bioelectric stimulator, and that's my job, that's my business. And so I have that device, and so I was training with that a lot just to keep the muscle on me. So that was my saving grace with it. And then I have a girlfriend who also had a little bit of weights. I was dating a guy at the time and he had some heavier weights, so that helped. It was just kind of like everyone was kind of helping each other out. And like if I needed to borrow his weights, he was like, "Yeah, I'm home at this time if you want to come by and use my weights." Or, you know, she let me use her weights sometimes for like upper body because they were lighter weights. And it was just, but I had to adapt my training because you had to do a little bit higher reps because obviously I'm not going heavy because I didn't have the weight to go heavy. So it was more like going to exhaustion on a lighter weight with higher reps.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we heard that story too as true time. But the thing that you were talking about, is that the thing where like you put it on your arm and then it like makes the veins pop and it like just does the pulsing thing? Is that what you're talking about? The thing that you have?
So it's similar to an eStim device. So there's electrodes that we place on the people. There's a training side and a rehab side. The training side gives you close to 100% muscle fiber recruitment. And anytime, yeah, you train with it, you are forcing that mind muscle connection.
We should definitely look into that. Yeah, that sounds. So how did you get into that whole business?
I used to work for them. I worked for headquarters at NewFit in Austin, and I worked there for them for 2.5 years, and then decided I wanted out of Texas, and I decided to bring that device out to the Valley and came out here to Vegas.
That is great. Yeah, I'll definitely look into it, and I'll leave a link for that for anyone interested in that. And I mean, what advice you have for people that are looking to just get started in their fitness journey after this pandemic? Because I mean, even I put on my 10 pounds of COVID weight that I'm still getting over, and it's just so many people struggled through this. And what advice you have for anyone looking to just get started? Because I find for so many people, I mean, just taking that first step in the gym is just so important. Because once you do that, I mean, it's so hard to walk out without getting a workout in.
Yep. Biggest thing I can say is like stay disciplined and stay consistent. Consistency is going to be key. It like give it a couple weeks and be consistent with it and go like as much as you can. I say don't go every day. A lot of people think you have to go every day. Don't go every day. Your body does need rest. That's actually where you build is when your body's at rest. But go 3 times a week to start and then bump it to 4 times a week and then 5 times a week. I have 2 rest days right now, so I don't train more than 5 times a week on weights. So I think more than that, you're pushing your recovery. But especially as a new person, though, you can actually recover a little bit easier and put on muscle easier. So just stay consistent with it and it'll pay off. But like that's the biggest thing is consistency.
Absolutely. And my favorite question to ask, and I think this is a question that everyone needs to hear, is like, let's be honest, everyone has those days when they're not feeling it. They don't feel like working out. They just wake up, they just feel drabby. They don't want to do it. What about you personally do you think really motivates you to just be able to go to the gym and get that workout out? Because that's one thing that I think separates the bodybuilders from just the general public, is that they're able to, have that mindset of just like, hey, I need to get this workout in. Where do you think that comes from for you? And what advice you have for people that are struggling on those days? Because that I think is one of the main reasons why people quit, is because they just have that one day where they're just like, oh, I don't want to do it. And then that one day turns into 2 days. Then it turns into three. Then it turns into a week. Then it turns into 2 weeks. And they just let it spiral down. So how do you deal with those days?
I have a pretty strong mentality about it. I mean, I'm pretty disciplined. And I always say when the motivation's not there, the discipline's going to get me there. Because to me, going to the gym is like brushing my teeth. Like it's part of my day. It's like, it's not even if, it's when, it's not, am I going to go to the gym today? It's when am I going to the gym today? And now I have it as such a routine. It's just second nature. So if I get myself to the gym, I'm going to work out. Don't even think about it. Just get in the car and go. Once you're set foot in the gym, you're gonna get there and you're gonna put in a workout. Even if it's a crappy workout, we all have them. At least you got it done.
Oh, 100%. And I always got to remind everyone, just like you said, don't go full on Rambo and, train like 3 hours a day for like a week, because then your body is literally going to give up on you. And then you're just going to be like, okay, yeah, this is stupid. I've had so many friends do that mistake where they just go so hardcore in the beginning. And it's like, good luck lasting longer. And then I've seen them, I think the longest was like 2 weeks they lasted. And then they're like, yeah, this is ridiculous. I can't do this anymore. So yeah, just do your pace. And unfortunately, as much as I hate cardio, go for walks. It's good for your heart, it's good for your health. So I really enjoy that too. But you mentioned the mind to muscle connection. That's one thing that I absolutely love to talk about, because that's the one thing that surprised me the most when I started really getting into working out in college. So many people don't know about it. And I think that's one thing that separates, the bodybuilders from the general public, or just really separates people who really want to grow muscle. So if, let's say I was living under a rock and I asked you what the mind to muscle connection is, how would you describe it?
Making sure that you're feeling the muscle you're working. Like, pay attention, like when you're doing a lat pull down. Are you feeling it in your lats, or are you feeling it in your traps and your biceps more? So there's certain ways to make sure that you're training the muscle you're intending to work versus your body overcompensating other muscles that might be stronger. But if you're trying to work a weaker muscle, you need to make sure that you're actually training that muscle, and that's where your mind is going, is to engage that muscle versus other muscles that might overtake it. Like, I couldn't do pull-ups for the longest time because my traps would recruit more. And my coach is like, stop. Like, don't even, like, you're not doing pull-ups. Your traps are going to grow. Your lats aren't going to grow. So it's just something that you have to be cognizant of, and like kind of really think, like. And also legs, like, it's huge. Like, are you feeling your quads engage when you're doing, front squats? Are you feeling your hamstrings engage and glutes engage when you're doing, hamstring curls or glute bridges? Like, where are you feeling it? If you're feeling it in your hamstrings during glute bridges and not your glutes, well, your hamstrings are taking over. So maybe adjust your stance, and maybe push through your heels a little bit more. So it's just little cues that you also learn as you progress in lifting to make sure that you're engaging those muscles right, and that you're feeling the muscle that you're working.
So that device that you use that helps with the mind and muscle connection, does it just somehow like hook into your brain where your brain is just forced to get into that? Or how does that work? Because that's just fascinating for me, because like I'm one of those people where anytime someone like would do like a pressure point on me or something like that, I'm just like, okay, how's my body shut down? Or like that whole neurological thing just impresses me.
Yeah, no. So it sends direct current versus a lot of these devices. That's where a lot of people go wrong. They want to get on these complex devices. Those are not the same thing. There's a reason that the newbie is as expensive as it is because the current it sends is direct current, and it's different than those simple complex machines that are a couple $100. That's alternating current. That's actually inferior to your body. This device is harmonious to your body, and it actually mimics the same signal your brain sends to your muscle. We can just send it up to 250 times what the brain can send it. Your brain sends that signal 2 pulses per second. My machine can send it up to 500 pulses per second. So that's at full on lengthening. Like, it would be so much current to the muscle that the muscle would just lengthen out. It couldn't contract. So we do that when you're at rest or during the rehab, is we have it at 500. But when you're working, you shorten down that pulse to 100 or 75 and or 55. 55 is a little bit hard to recover from, so I don't really like using that because you get really sore from it, and the recovery is just not worth it. But I train at 100 or 75 pulses per second, and that's still a lot more than what your brain can send it, and it just shortens down that pulse and allows you to rip through the contraction easier. And at the same time, because it's that same signal that your brain sends, it's just you're re-educating that mind muscle connection faster. And also, you can do less weight, so it's easier on joints too, because your body actually thinks it's doing more weight than it is.
So like during so does it help with recovery too when you're doing that at like the full pace of recovery?
Yeah, absolutely. It can help with recovery. So it can help, lengthen out muscles if they're super tight. You just can't, you have to go just to like first compensation. You can't push it past that. Otherwise, you will get sore again. Um, but yeah, like recovering from injury though, like it's awesome with that. And it's actually helped different neurological conditions like MS. I have several MS clients who have regained function of limbs that they had that they didn't have function over.
I have an aunt that has MS, so yeah, I'll definitely look into that. For yeah, that just sounds amazing. And yeah, this is just, yeah, learned so much now. And I mean, Karlen, if we were to talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding journey? Where would you like to just be at in your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved if we were to talk a year from today?
Just a year? That's not very long.
Well, hey, that's the one thing that COVID taught me is that, in a year, anything can happen.
This is true. Um, I would like to be I'm just gonna put it out there. I would like to have been on the Olympia stage my rookie year. So I think that would be really cool. Um, and then working to return to the Olympia stage, and then just growing my business. I mean, that's my biggest thing right now is like I came out to Vegas to start on my own and start my own business. So a year from now, I would like to have twice, if not three times as many clients as I have right now, just growing my business and helping people.
Is there any place that anyone can find you at other than your Instagram page if they're interested in your training? Because we do have a lot of guests that listen from the Las Vegas area.
Instagram is easiest. I mean, I have Instagram. I have my business profile and my personal profile. You can do either one. My personal has more following, but my business is the number three pro dot fit, and then my personal is Karlen Karlen underscore IFBB pro.
Absolutely. And we'll leave a link to all that too. And, like I always say, buyer beware. You will get inspired to get in shape and stop eating those Twinkies and, get off the couch. But is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Um, I mean, biggest thing is my coach for always being there and helping me, John Jewett, and then my good friends Stacy McLeod and Christina Bittner. They've been my rock through everything.
I've heard of Stacey McLeod. I think I tried to get her on the podcast, so we'll see if she'll come on now because that is just so awesome. And again, we cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your journey with us. And I really do think you're going to do great in your competition. Now it's great that you actually had that 3 years off because so many people I think go so hard early on. Once they get that pro card, they think, oh, I got to compete in the next show, and then it's good to just let your body rest and recover. And it's really great for your mind too as well. And yeah, again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, again, everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.